He confessed to past infidelities, saying he loves me but fears repeating his mistakes. I took him confused and anxious. He's sweet, funny, and kind, yet trust is now a big issue. Should I take a chance on him despite my doubts? Can he really change? I apologize for the length of this message. I want to provide as much context as possible. Summary: I love him, but he admitted to infidelity in past relationships. He claims he has not cheated on me. We are not officially a couple, just exclusive, but his reluctance to date officially stems from his desire to avoid causing me pain. I still want to be with him, but I recognize that trust will be an issue. I have been seeing this guy for a couple of months, and I genuinely like him a lot. I have never felt this strongly for someone before, to the point that it almost frightens me. He is humorous, sweet, kind, and patient. He listens when I express something that concerns me and actively tries to change his behavior. He feels like not just a partner but also a friend. He has the ability to make me laugh regardless of the situation. I relocated to the same city as him for college recently, not because of him. I had already planned it, so our relationship has progressed more rapidly than when we were long distance, 4 hours apart. Back then, I would see him approximately every 2 weeks. Now, it is at least once a week. I enjoy spending time with him, and I genuinely feel happy and safe when I am with him. We have been seeing each other for 5 months now, and around the 3-month mark, I started inquiring about dating. He responded somewhat awkwardly, and with some prodding, he revealed that he is unsure if he is ready, as he does not want to bring any of his past relationship trauma into our dynamic. I told him that was acceptable, and I could wait for a while, but I also expressed that it made me feel somewhat anxious. He reassured me and said he fully intends to date me when he feels a bit more prepared. This is the most serious relationship I have ever experienced. I have never dated anyone before. He is the first person I have had sexual relations with, and I had only kissed one person before him. We have exchanged, "I love you." I truly love him and envision a future with him. However, yesterday, while we were talking on the phone late at night, asking each other silly questions, we ended up discussing our deepest, darkest secrets. I did not have one to share, but he became slightly nervous and said, "Mine is really bad." He tends to be quite critical of himself, so I guessed it would not be as terrible as he thought, prompting my response. "How bad?" he answered. "Like you might not want to date me anymore." I felt a knot in my stomach but encouraged him to share. He hesitated for a moment. I could tell he was really anxious, and I told him he did not have to reveal it right then if he was uncomfortable. However, he expressed that it was weighing on him and that he knew he needed to tell me. After a bit of nervous hesitation, he divulged. "I was not faithful in my past relationships." I sat in silence for a moment, completely taken aback by his revelation. I did not know much about his previous relationships, other than that most of them had not ended well. I was aware that his last girlfriend had cheated on him, but it turned out he had only assumed that. I told him I did not appreciate that he implied he had been cheated on without knowing for certain. He apologized and acknowledged my feelings. I asked him numerous questions about his past. Why did he cheat? I do not know why I asked that. He explained that his first girlfriend was very emotionally abusive, and they dated when he was about 15. He acknowledged that it was no excuse, but he felt too frightened to confront her directly to end the relationship, so he resorted to cheating. In his next relationship, which lasted about 2 years, he confessed to cheating frequently. When I inquired about the nature of the cheating, he admitted to talking to other girls, using dating apps and sexting women. Eventually, she broke up with him. Regarding his most recent girlfriend, he stated that he did not cheat on her. When I asked why, he simply said he did not know. I should have mentioned this earlier, but about a month into our conversations, we established that we were exclusive, with him specifically bringing it up. I asked if there had been any women while we were together. He answered no. I then asked if he had considered talking to other women. He also responded no. I made him pinky swear. He explained that this is why he has been hesitant to ask me out. He is scared. He stated that I am too good to hurt in that way. He is concerned that he may feel that urge again. I'm also feeling somewhat frustrated because I have been anxious about our relationship, but just started to feel more certain. He reintroduced the idea of asking me out again, expressing a desire to make it a memorable occasion with flowers and everything. I have attended some of his performances and have been in public with him. I was scheduled to meet his mother and friends, but was unable to do so. Now that this information has come to light, I am worried. For additional context, whenever a girl requests his phone number or social media information, he informs me and shows me her. He explained that he does it because he wants to be transparent and honest. I told him that it would be challenging for me to trust him now, and he acknowledged my concerns. I sat in silence for a while, processing everything before finally saying, "I still like you." He seemed to assume I would not, as he hesitantly replied, "Really? I do still have feelings for him. I love him. I want to believe that he can change. I know he is a good person. However, I also recognize the need to be cautious. I feel like it may already be too late for me. I care for him deeply, and I am uncertain if I could walk away if I wanted to. I want to trust him, and I hope for our relationship to flourish. Is it worth continuing to see him? How can I establish stability and trust during our relationship? I need external opinions." Story 2. When my first job accused me of not cleaning and withheld my paycheck, I documented the toxic work environment, including fraud and abuse. I reported them to OSHA, leading to hefty fines and the business's closure. Was it worth it? So this incident occurred a while ago at my first job. A summary is provided at the bottom. I worked at a small local spa company that had only about 6 employees. I was employed there for a year and a half and met the owner only once, although I communicated with her often by phone. She was exceptionally difficult to deal with, but that is beside the point. I was hired because my friend's mother, Pam, was the manager, and they urgently needed someone after another employee quit in the middle of their shift. I performed very well and learned quickly. I became so proficient at the job that, after a few months, new hires were sent to be trained by me, as turnover at the company was high. Despite my performance, I did not receive a raise or any additional compensation. While this was not a major concern, it would have been appreciated. I was always scheduled to close the spa, and there was a checklist of tasks I needed to complete after we closed, such as vacuuming and dusting. Over time, Pam began to nitpick small details. For instance, she would criticize me if a string was left on the rug or if the candy bowls were not refilled, even though they were not even half empty. These complaints were minor, but they made it seem as though I was not meeting expectations. Gradually, the situation worsened. Eventually, I was told I was not cleaning rooms that I had, in fact, cleaned. While I acknowledged that I would occasionally forget to clean something, I was being reprimanded for tasks I knew I had completed. Additionally, when my coworkers would forget similar tasks, they were not reprimanded. Instead, Pam would simply remind them to try to remember. Eventually, Pam persuaded other coworkers to lie about me so she could report me to the owner. Many days, I came directly from school wearing jeans. Pam would leave right when I arrived, and after I clocked in and counted the cash drawer, I would change into my work pants. However, other employees lied and told Pam that I never changed my clothes. In response to this, I began taking photographs and timestamping them. This worked for a while, but then my coworkers claimed I changed back into jeans after those photos were taken. When it came to cleaning tasks, Pam would argue that I did not clean sufficiently, among other complaints. All these complaints were reported to the owner, but she did not terminate my employment because they were desperate for staff, and no one else wanted to work there. I wonder why. Eventually, I resigned because I secured a summer job that offered significantly more hours. In that summer position, I earned the same amount in 7 weeks that I made in a year at my previous job. Shortly after I left, I discovered the reason why Pam wanted me gone so desperately. She had hired her son, my former friend, because he was too lazy to work at a job where he couldn't sit around all day. This angered me, but even worse was that they withheld my final paycheck. We were paid in cash. I sent multiple emails and text messages to both Pam and the owner reminding them that I needed my payment. When I received no response, I threatened legal action, and as a high school student, I don't believe they thought I would take any action. How mistaken they were. There were many reasons for my frustration, so I decided to document every single issue I encountered at that establishment. These included 8-hour workdays with no breaks or lunch, both of which are mandated in my state, rats in the basement, ant infestations, fake security cameras, allowing underage drinking, Pam falsifying the amounts of money we owed her son and daughter for off-the-books work. Child labor. Pam's daughter was not old enough to work, failing to repair conditions such as structural damage and mold. Allowing indoor temperatures to exceed legal limits on particularly bad days. It was above 100 degrees or below 50 degrees inside. Drug use. Pam giving herself a raise despite already earning more than everyone else there. Selling client information. Pam recruiting clients for another employee to take with them to a new company, usually not illegal, but their method was unethical. I do not recall the specific details. Failing to address harassment complaints. Failing to pay employees. There were days when we did not have enough money in the cash drawer, and the owner or Pam would be too idle to go to the bank, resulting in them not paying us. Furthermore, prior to my departure, I recorded instances of the verbal abuse from Pam. Believe it or not, I even managed to get her to admit to creating false write-ups about me. There was more information, but I can't recall everything at the moment. Regardless, I compiled all of this and sent it in an email to the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. This resulted in significant repercussions. Ultimately, both Pam and the owner were served with substantial fines, and Pam is currently facing jail time for fraud. The owner was forced to shut down the business and sell it. I do not know if the owner is facing any jail time. I also emailed every spa within a 50-mile radius, causing the owner, Pam, and some coworkers to be blacklisted from employment within an hour of our location. I never received my final paycheck. It wasn't worth pursuing in court, but the outcome was far more valuable. Summary: my first job made false allegations against me in an attempt to have me terminated, and when I eventually left, they hired the manager's lazy son and withheld my paycheck. I reported them to the state, resulting in them being blacklisted from working at any spa within a 50-mile radius. Edit: I changed P to Pam. Thank you to everyone who pointed that out and corrected some spelling and grammatical errors. Edit 2: thank you for the platinum. Story 3. How do I, a 28-year-old man, tell the woman, age 27, I took him in love with that I don't know if I can continue our friendship anymore, because I saw the way she was texting someone else. TLDR. I discovered the text messages my female best friend, with whom I have feelings, was sending to a coworker she referred to as annoying. How can I express that I do not want to experience this situation again? First and foremost, I am using a throwaway account because I am uncertain if she is aware that I utilize Reddit, although she certainly knows my username. I use it for all of my accounts. Secondly, this will likely be a lot of rambling and venting, but I assure you there is a question embedded within. Lastly, before we proceed with the story, it is currently 3 a.m., and I am drafting this on my phone, so I apologize for any spelling or grammatical errors. To begin, I, a 28-year-old male, have a female best friend whom I will refer to as Katie, aged 27, who has been my friend for the better part of a decade. We started working together at a restaurant when I was 20 and she was 19. I had feelings for her back then, but since her best friend had died in a car accident, I chose not to pursue those feelings because it felt inappropriate to romanticize a grieving girl, so I simply became a friend. This was nice. We spent significant time together, partying, drinking, smoking typical late teen and early 20s activities. During this period, Katie was in a couple of casual situationships. We did not discuss them much. I was aware of their existence, but she did not really bring them up, and I did not want to know either. After about a year and a half, I got a girlfriend, which caused Katie and me to drift apart since best friends and girlfriends do not typically mix well. A year later, I found myself single again and moved cities, and Katie re-entered my inner circle, spending a lot of time at my apartment and frequently going out to eat. I had just come out of a relationship, so I was not ready to start another and did not want her to feel like a rebound. I valued our friendship and was not willing to jeopardize it over something I could not fully commit to. Another year passed, and Katie began a long-term relationship with a guy. Consequently, I started drifting again because boyfriends and male best friends also do not mix well, which was fine since I wanted her to be happy. Fast forward 2 years, they broke up, and we fell back into our previous routine talking, texting, and FaceTiming daily, hanging out whenever possible, a pattern that has persisted for the last 2 to 3 years. Then, in late 2024, she revealed that she once had deep feelings for me and believed I was the one before her last boyfriend, but she was apprehensive about risking our friendship. This hit me like a freight train. I felt sadness for not knowing, frustration at myself for missing the signs, joy that she had feelings for me, and hope that those feelings might still linger. The next time we hung out, while we were at my place doing nothing on my front porch, my heart racing, I took a risk, pulled her close, and kissed her twice. She responded by saying, "I do not feel anything." My heart shattered, my mind racing, believing I had ruined our friendship. Nonetheless, she maintained a cool demeanor. I assured her that it would not alter our relationship, and she agreed, avoiding the topic thereafter. Until January, when we went out drinking at a bar, and she kept mentioning how she told her friends about our kiss and how enjoyable it was. It filled me with hope that perhaps I surprised her and caused her to feel apprehensive, but maybe after some reflection, she was warming up to the idea. We ultimately left the bar together, holding hands, her declaring that tonight would be the night. We took an Uber to a mutual friend's house for a bonfire, only for her to reveal that she planned to sleep with him instead. So I returned home alone. At that point, I was more upset than heartbroken. I unburdened myself to her, expressing my feelings for her not just now, but in the past and how hurt and used I felt after that night, clarifying that the kiss had meant something significant to me and that I needed some space from her. She apologized, stating she was just drunk and did not intend to hurt me. She was unsure how to process her feelings and feared losing me, admitting she was not in a good place to begin a relationship at that moment. Ultimately, I capitulated, and things returned to a semblance of normalcy. However, when she was drunk, she would tell me she found me attractive and thought I would make an excellent boyfriend, but she never vocalized it when sober. I even crafted her a personalized Valentine's Day basket filled with her favorite candies and Disney plushies that she adored. Recently, however, she mentioned a new guy at work whom she pretended to dislike. She stated that he had asked for her number multiple times, and even though he was younger and annoying, she felt guilty and eventually gave it to him. Then she visited me for the weekend, from Sunday evening to Wednesday morning, and communicated that they had been texting, but it was only about work. However, I stumbled upon some of the texts. I was not intentionally snooping, but I noticed she seemed more engrossed in her phone than usual. No big deal. But tonight, while she was on the couch and I was situated about 4 feet away in my recliner, she had her phone at full brightness, directing it towards me, allowing me to clearly see all the messages. They were flirtatious, undoubtedly exchanged with someone she works with the contact showing a single heart emoji and no name attached. I can only conclude that she is deceiving me about her feelings toward this guy to spare my feelings. How can I approach her about knowing the contents of the texts and express that I do not believe I can continue our friendship without it sounding like an ultimatum? I want to avoid giving the impression that it is either him or me. I have simply reached a point where I no longer want to feel like I am not a valid choice. Story 4. My friend and I created a fake project to expose our company's salespeople who were stealing ideas. It went viral, embarrassing them completely. Did we just deliver the ultimate payback to a dysfunctional workplace? Originally, this was posted over in RRBI, and they suggested that a longer version would be suitable here. So here it goes. I hope you enjoy it. Decades ago, I worked the worst terrible job of my life as a software engineer, writing code for an onboard diagnostics Roman 2-car code scanner at a completely dysfunctional business I am not going to name, but I will drop a hint and say that all their products are orange. It was right after September 11, I was laid off, and jobs were nearly impossible to find. But I managed to land a position there, and out of desperation, I accepted the job. There I met probably the best friend I ever made at work. I will call him Agent S. Agent S was a coder's coder, a really laid-back individual, and an overall good person. Imagine if the dude could code, you would pretty much have Agent S. We enjoyed many wonderful, lengthy lunches while working there. I needed the calm he imparted to me because that place was chaotic. All the departments toxically disliked each other, the head of engineering was as paranoid as a Russian czar, and there was rampant abuse, theft, and all sorts of dysfunction. It was a complete madhouse. But eventually, everyone has their limit, and Agent S submitted his 2 weeks' notice. Just to illustrate how nice he was, He was the only person who quit without being escorted to his car immediately by an armed guard, which was standard procedure. He was allowed to serve his last 2 weeks, so imagine my surprise when Agent S said, "I want some payback before I leave." A few days earlier, the paranoid czar of engineering issued us an odd directive. When you leave your desk for any reason, you are to take all the documents on your desk and lock them in your drawer. You are to secure your computer. You must input a password into your basic input-output system and shut down your machine when you leave for the night. You are to erase your whiteboards. Leave no scrap of paper or any clue about what you are working on. There was no explanation as to why, which was typical for him. Just comply. Of course, we all wanted to know the reason. So our field agent, whom I will refer to as Bond, set out to find out. Bond was sociable, charming, and had friends in every department within the increasingly fragmented organizational structure. "I will ask around and don't tell anyone." He discovered the truth. Somehow, the engineering czar found out that individuals in the sales department were working late, waiting for engineering to leave. Once we departed, they rummaged through our desks and computers searching for clues about our work. They would take notes on our projects, claim them as their own, and present the materials to their superiors to appear valuable and secure raises, and all that enjoyable sales-related baggage. Yes, I understand that sales is supposed to gather input from their customers for desired features and then make proposals to engineering. I did mention that this place is dysfunctional, right? Engineers dictated product design since sales could not be bothered. And why should they, when they could simply steal the information instead? Right? So Agent S had reached his breaking point. We initiated Project Skunk. All projects in this place were named after animals. We decided to include an indication in the name that things were not as they seemed. We envisioned the most remarkable on-board Diagnostics Roman II scanner in the world. Here are some of the specifications. Since everyone knows that 32-bit processors are more expensive than 8-bit processors, we would save money by utilizing a 2-bit processor. The electrically erasable programmable read-only memory that contained the automotive database was costly as well. Therefore, to conserve space, we would use ZIP compression to reduce the database 12 times and store it on a single 4-kilobyte electrically erasable programmable read-only memory. Predictive analysis. If you input the last few codes your car generated, it would extrapolate and inform you about the next component in your vehicle that was likely to fail. I conceived this idea. I am particularly proud of it. And so on. We spent a delightful afternoon creating box diagrams, complete with flux capacitors, n-dimensional grommets and yoyodyne compensators, numerous specifications, analyses, and other assorted pieces of utter nonsense. We scattered them all over Agent Estique's desk, then went home. The very next day, our field agent Bond delivered the news. Project Skunk is a success. The entire building is abuzz with excitement. Sales representatives are tripping over one another, claiming credit. It took about a week before the stolen ideas finally reached the 6-figure executives, at which point someone with half a brain noticed that everything in the project was utterly impossible. Agent S had already departed by then, but I tracked him down, and we had lunch together. I informed him about the results of the ill-gotten materials he had left behind. Sales had been significantly embarrassed in front of their superiors, as well as their higher-ups. I do not know if anything came of it. It was an old boys' network there, and I am sure they covered for one another in some capacity. However, they were embarrassed and wounded. How do I know? Every day from that point forward, anytime someone from sales walked past me in a hallway, they would physically turn their face away from me to shun me. It was hilarious. It was as if I was the villain for creating fake materials for them to pilfer. They went under not long after that. The building now houses a medical company supplying COVID masks. Edit. I did not notice Rule 11 before I posted. I apologize for that. I have fixed it. Story 5. Living with my parents while caring for their pets, I asked to waive board during their vacation. Dad exploded, claiming aita not helping. Am I wrong for wanting to save money while they travel? I am a 23-year-old female currently living at home with my parents, our 2 cats, and 1 dog, who is only 10 months old. I have been contemplating moving out into a shared house for some time now. However, My parents are presently on a 6-week vacation overseas. It was always the plan for me to stay home and take care of the house and the pets, a responsibility I accepted willingly. For a few years, I have been giving them $100 a week in board. I mostly pay for my own food, and my parents own the house and have no debts. I do not mind giving them the money. Nonetheless, I am a full-time PhD student, and while I do receive a paid scholarship, it is not a significant amount, and I am limited in the hours I can work outside my PhD to continue receiving the scholarship. Things have also deteriorated significantly for me at home, and my relationship with my father has become quite antagonistic. My mother and father have been arguing frequently lately, and I have become increasingly frustrated with my circumstances, actively searching for a way to move out for over 6 months. However, I was aware of their upcoming trip, and I promised I would stay and look after everything while they were away, leading me to remain at home. A few days before they departed, I mentioned to my parents whether I could forego paying board while they were away. I thought this was reasonable because, if I were not present, they would have had to find someone to care for all of our animals and cover maintenance costs. My mother immediately agreed, but my father was silent and did not respond. I did not think much of it at the time, as this behavior is typical for my father. He often becomes very quiet when he is upset, which is usually the case. The following day, however, I overheard him and my mother arguing about my not paying board. I do not remember much of what was said other than my mother asking, "Who is paying for the electricity?" She reiterated that they would have to pay someone else, who would charge significantly more. A little while later, before dinner, I casually mentioned the board situation to my older brother, who lives independently. That is when my father finally addressed me, essentially bringing up the cost of electricity and other expenses. I told him that I was genuinely doing him a favor, and he literally responded, "You are not doing anything for me," and then walked away. I was utterly shocked by that response. I would be responsible for watering all of the gardens my parents have, walking the dog every day who, mind you, is still a puppy and requires a lot of attention feeding the pets, and keeping the house tidy. All of this would incur much greater costs if they had to pay someone else. Furthermore, the only reason I have not moved out yet is that they were going away, and I needed to plan around their schedule. In any case, am I the one at fault for refusing to pay board while they are away? Edit, I think I should provide additional context since many people have raised similar points. Firstly, I am not denying that my parents have done a great deal for me. They have. I would not be where I am today without their unconditional support. However, I believe that further context would be beneficial. My father's entire perspective on life revolves around money. Everything he says to my mother and me, everything he argues about with her, literally everything concerns financial matters. It is becoming increasingly absurd, particularly as he ages. However, they are completely financially stable. My father is just extremely controlling about it. I have offered several times to increase my board payment, but he has declined. I believe this is ultimately because, if I contributed more, he would lose some degree of control, as I could argue with him over insignificant household expenses. Reasons I have not moved out. Realistically, I have wanted to move out for years, but it has never been financially feasible since I was only working part-time while pursuing my undergraduate degree. Now that I am receiving the scholarship, I could afford to do so. I have faced significant mental health issues throughout my life. Yes, I understand this is not an excuse, but I have only recently reached a point where I feel confident about moving away. I am Australian, and we are currently experiencing a severe housing crisis, which also affects rental properties. The cost of living has risen dramatically over the past few years, making it even more challenging to move out. I do not want to leave my mother behind. My parents have a very tumultuous relationship. My mother has told me multiple times that she does not want me to leave her alone with my father. This has caused me to feel extremely guilty at the thought of moving out. Regarding finances and board, I do not seek to take advantage of the situation. That is not my intention at all. It is simply the case that if I did not pay board while they were away, they would not be impacted whatsoever. They would face difficulties if I left, and they had to find someone else to care for the animals. I am not suggesting that, because my parents own their home, I should not have to pay board. That is not my stance. Concerning the scholarship, There have been numerous comments suggesting that I should work full-time in addition to my scholarship and PhD studies. Again, I am Australian, and with the scholarship I receive, I am only permitted to work an additional 16 hours a week in order to continue receiving the scholarship. If I transition to part-time studies, I could work more hours, but I am not willing to do that because I want to complete my PhD as quickly as possible.